Hello, fellow queens, it's your boy Isadora, and it is time to interview that vampire. Honestly, I wasn't planning on filming today. This has been like a patch sewing day. This is See You in Hell. I love it. Yeah, I just sewed this on today. I was just getting dressed because, I'm trading my friend some unlicensed chiropractic for some chicken and dumpling soup. I do, Reiki and shit. I am uniquely qualified to perform certain tasks, and I will not elaborate. Anyway, today we're getting back the fuck in to Interview with a Vampire. So recently, we've gone through Claudia. Ooh, I just kicked my camera. Whatever, man. So I just went through Claudia's early years as a baby vampire, and she's kind of going through vampire puberty right now. So that's what we're gonna get in today. Again, I'm just following the page break, so we're still in part 1. So if you want to get caught up, I have a whole fucking playlist. I'll link it below, dog. So the last section pretty much is everything with Claudia was amazing until she began to ask questions. And isn't that just like a man to love a woman who doesn't think about anything, who is intellectually a child? Anyway, so after Louis gets into oh yeah, shit was great with Claudia, then she started asking questions. There's a pause. The vampire stopped, and Louis takes a pause and he goes, "I should have known," he said, "that it was inevitable. I should have seen the signs of it coming. For I was so attuned to her. I loved her so completely. She was so much the companion of my every waking hour." Sorry, I'm full of, tamales right now. Anyway, I thought I was gonna burp, but I didn't. Anyway, she was so much the companion of my every waking hour, the only companion that I had other than death. I should have known. So he kind of gets into how, he was enjoying, the companionship of Claudia as, intellectually a child so much that he pretty much kind of ignored this, giant gulf growing between them, which is really interesting because I think, something we've kind of seen with Louis in his other relationships is that he kind of ignores what the other people around him could be going through because he's so focused on his own pain and his own desires all the time. We kind of see that with his brother, with Lestat. Again, Lestat's super toxic, an insane person to be in a relationship with. But again, we see Louis has this pattern of stilted and cold relationships and inability to fully look out for and relate to other people unless he's relating to people through a distance. He loved watching and stalking Babette, but even with his own family members, he had a big falling out with his brother who he didn't exactly relate to. He didn't really have much kind to say about his sister or his mother. Lestat is the closest person we see in a daily relationship with him, and they have a horrible relationship. Now we start to see that the second Claudia becomes a thinking person, the wedge starts to form between Louis and Claudia. Even though he wants to imagine her as this ideal little girl, she's growing, she's changing, and instead of embracing that, he's choosing to ignore it. And actually, surprisingly, this is one of the real moments of self-reflection we actually see from Louis genuinely. So he goes, "What do I say? That I ignored the signs in her, that I clung desperately to the happiness she'd given me and still gave me and ignored all else." So I think that's kind of interesting that looking back, this is the first time we've really seen him kind of acknowledge what he had done wrong in a relationship. When it comes to how he interacted with his brother, his family, with Lestat, he's kind of obsessed with Lestat as the ultimate villain, but he doesn't really choose to look deeply. All these things that he says kind of separate him from Lestat, or this intellectual nature, this introspection, this sensitivity. He seems kind of unwilling to turn it on other people. But in the case of Claudia, he's I ignored all the signs of her distress. And he even goes to say what the signs were. So he says, she grew cold to Lestat. She fell to staring at him for hours. When he spoke, often she didn't answer. And he couldn't tell if it was hate, fascination, or she was just so wrapped up in her thoughts that she ignored him. So this is kind of so Lestat, Louis, and Claudia had kind of found an equilibrium together, a fragile sort of domestic life as a family unit, and it all comes fucking crashing to the ground. And Claudia asks questions. So like Lestat and Claudia are having like all this tension. And you know, Louis is trying to like kind of referee. So he goes, you know, to Lestat, she's not a child any longer. I whispered to him, I don't know what it is. She's a woman. And you know, what's the matter with her? Lestat flared at me as though I'd given birth to her and must know. I think that's really funny. Especially, something that's really occurring to me as I go through these chapters is kind of like the feminization of Lestat and the way like Louis puts him in like the feminine role and probably therefore views him with like contempt, lacking intelligence, lack of control, and to possess like nothing really worthwhile outside of the ability to create more vampires. So like there's a lot I want to talk about. I'm thinking of doing like a little like video essay rant side piece thing like on actually what's kind of cool is like the the feminization of Lestat, like kind of in like the mother role of the family and like what that means for the dynamic of Louis and Lestat and their child. Like why might have Anne Rice have done that? How does that reflect like her innate like leanings and perhaps some like questions of gender she might have been dealing with? Again, like I don't really think it's cool to like impose like your ideas of like gender, sexuality, and labels on somebody who is passed away if they never said anything about it. But Anne Rice has said quite a few things about her relationship to gender, so like I would literally just be going off what she said. Anyway, then we go, you know, Claudia starts playing like she's having like her teenage era tantrums. She kills their house staff and leaves the dead bodies to rot like on their property, and something like disappears. Something that like really occurred to me as I was reading this is that Anne Rice really like does not glamorize death. She does not gloss over it. Like she goes into deep description of like scent, the smell, like the rotting of the bodies. Like it really struck me when she was talking about the death of Claudia's mother, but here again, with the mother and daughter servants that Claudia killed. Yeah, so Anne Rice says, there they lay on the bricks, mother and daughter together, the arm of the mother fastened around the waist of the daughter, daughter's head bent against the mother's breast, both foul with feces and swarming with insects. A great cloud of gnats rose as the shutter fell back, and I waved them away from me in a convulsive disgust. Ants crawled undisturbed over the eyelids, the mouths of the dead pair, and in the moonlight I could see the endless map of silvery paths of snails. That's pure gothic evil. That goes so hard. Like, the way Anne Rice goes into such detail of describing corpses and rot in a way that, like, I think vampires have kind of been defanged over time, and, like, I feel like in Twilight, like, if you actually look at, like, cryptid and monster lore, the way the vampires in Twilight function are kind of more like trolls even. They're totally removed from like any context in which they were created, and Anne Rice is not playing around. This shit is full nasty. No holds barred. Then, you know, Louis and Lestat are kind of fighting because of course like their daughter is acting out. And Lestat's like, she knows better, she knows what to do, and she did this without my permission. And Louis is trying to like, it's very interesting that then you are master of us all. You didn't teach her that. Was she supposed to imbibe it from my quiet subservience? I don't think so. She sees herself as equal to us now and us as equal to each other. I tell you, we must reason with her, instruct her to respect what is ours, as all of us should respect it. Very interesting shit going on here. Like, so in order to kind of cover up the crimes, because again, Claudia killed their servants, they've disappeared. Their servants have family members, so Lestat goes and kills their family members to hide the whole thing. Wrap it up with a nice neat little bow, as it were. It's kind of cute. So alright, so maybe it's not cute. Maybe I'm just like fully fucked in the head. 100% a possibility. So Lestat goes to kill the family members, the servants that Claudia had killed, and he says that he's kind of dizzy and drunk because both the father and son that he killed drank too much wine. So he's like, both of them had drank too much wine. I found myself tapping the fence posts with a stick to make a tune. He laughed, but I don't like it, the dizziness. Do you like it? And when he looked at me, I had to smile at him because the wine was working in him and he was mellow. And in that moment, when his face looked warm and reasonable, I leaned over and said, I hear Claudia's tap on the stairs. Be gentle with her. It's all done. Like, I think we're on page 95. This is the first time I've seen Louis and Lestat have any like real kind of companionable human interaction. And I believe, so like we kind of get really into like the first 4 or 5 years of Louis being a vampire where like he doesn't feed off people. That's kind of chronologically sound, but so far there's only been hints that like we've gone through like decades and decades and decades of Claudia remaining a little girl. So I'm not sure where we are now, but it's essentially been decades since Louis and Lestat hooked up, and they're like seem to be enjoying each other's company for the first time on page 95. So that's not good. So Louis got rid of the bodies Claudia had left in the house. Lestat covers for her by killing the rest of the servant's family. Then Claudia comes back. Lestat and Claudia kind of start fighting, and then Claudia goes, which of you did it? Which of you made me what I am? She's beginning to be plagued with like existential questions about like her nature. Where did she come from? Why are things as they are? Lestat kind of treats Claudia in the same way he treated Louis. So, Lestat, he raised his eyebrows now in mock amazement. What you are, he asked, and would you be something other than what you are? He drew up his knees and leaned forward, his eyes narrow. Do you know how long it's been? Can you picture yourself? Must I find a hag to show you your mortal countenance now if I had let you alone? That's so dark. So we kind of see like, basically whenever Lestat is questioned in any manner, his immediate response is like to purely attack, which is very healthy and chill. So then this all ends, like Claudia's like, tell me how you did it and asking all of these questions. And Lestat is like kind of offended that she would ever even question anything. And he goes, be glad I made you what you are, he sneered, or I'll break you into 1,000 pieces. This is just like a kind of like in the feminization of Lestat in like the family dynamic, like being blamed for everything, being like hyper emotional in response to what Louis kind of is saying, I'm like staid and calm and I try and solve problems. Lestat is just an emotional wreck and blowing up, and he's our BPD princess, But yeah, that's just such a mother thing. It's like, you ask your mom any question and she's just like, I guess I was the worst mother in the world. Be glad I like gave you clothes and a house. I'm like, that's literally the bare minimum if you have kids, but whatever. I mean, I ain't asked to be here. I don't even ask why I was here because I know I'm here by accident. So, yeah, no questions. So, like, Claudia and Lestat are having all of this tension. They're not even speaking to each other. And meantime, Lestat is kind of engaging in, like, the stereotypically feminine activities, which we've kind of seen him doing throughout his relationship with Louis. So, Lestat, meantime, hired a butler and maid and had a team of workers in to make a great fountain in the courtyard with a stone nymph pouring water eternal from a wide-mouthed shell. He had goldfish brought and boxes of rooted water lilies set into the fountain. So their blossoms rested upon the surface and shivered in the ever-moving water. I just love the, like, descriptive shit that Anne Rice builds in here. It's very beautiful. But again, we see Lestat, like, hyper-emotional, spending money, keeping up the house, keeping up with the guests. These are all, like, very feminine gender-rolled things. Then there's just this paragraph I really, really enjoy where, like, Lestat is essentially, like, killing people for fun just so it, like, appears in the papers. A woman had seen him kill on the Naiades, I don't know, road, which ran to the town of Carrollton. And there were stories of it in the papers associating him with a haunted house near Naiades and Melpomen, all of which delighted him. He was the Naiades Goad Roast for some time. Wait, Naiades Road Ghost. Roast rare, bitch, fuck me. So yeah, in my notes, I just say, like, Lestat is so fucking funny. Like, he's pulling some, like, Chesapeake Ripper shit. Of course I'm a fan of the Hannibal television show. Look at the fucking context clues, okay? I didn't even need to tell you that. Deep lore, I was Imagine Hannibal Lecter back in the day. Come through if you remember that. So, but Louis is saying that even though Lestat is, like, doing all these things to amuse himself, committing all these murders that are appearing in the papers, he still has, like, a deep unease about Claudia. And, like, he's just kind of begging Louis. He's like, you take care of her, you talk to her, you fix it. So we have this, like, feuding mother and daughter type vibes. And we get into, like, Claudia, like, so Louis talks about her being, like, seductive active repeatedly throughout the book and kind of blending their relationship, blending the lines between like father and daughter, like husband and wife. It's just very uncomfortable. This is like very within, like incest is like a big theme in like gothic literature and horror. If you've even seen it, I think Guillermo del Toro really leans into this in both Crimson Peak and Frankenstein, where Mia Goth plays both Frankenstein's mom, who like as a kid it seems like he wants to bone her, and she plays his brother's wife, who he also wants to bone. Like very interesting things, but I don't enjoy this aspect of the gothic particularly. So, you know, Claudia's trying to seduce information out of Louis, which I don't like describing that in the context of somebody in the body of a 4-year-old, but I'm working with the text, so sue me. So, you know, then she turned full around and put her hands on my face. "Kill with me tonight," she whispered as sensuously as a lover, "and tell me all that you know. What are we? Why are we not like them?" She looked down into the street. And Louis is like, "I don't know the answers to your questions, bitch. I'm just a sad, lonely clown. Oh, I don't know anything." And yeah, like, Claudia's just trying to get, like, information. She could get no information from Lestat at all. She says he won't tell her anything. Of course, Louis breaks down, and he's like, "Okay, like, we'll get into it. I'll explain some shit to you." And, like, she's kind of, like, begging him, you know, "Are there other vampires? What are we? Like, what's going on? What is, like, the nature of us? What's happening here?" I thought it's really interesting. So Louis, wow. Like Lewis Griffin or whatever. Anyway, so he's like looking into her eyes while she's begging, and he's like, "There's no pain." I thought suddenly, "There's urgency, heartless urgency." So like, I think Louis kind of like acts from like this masturbatory like agony, so he thinks he's better than other people, and he's waiting for like Claudia as somebody who he considers like not only his lover, but like his child. Ooh, somebody should like, that like TikTok dad should not be able to read this book. Have y'all heard of like the daddy-daughter dream team on TikTok? I'm trying to not hear about it, but I've clearly been cursed by God with awareness and being chronically online. Rough. So I looked down at her. "Aren't you the same as I?" She looked at me. "You've taught me all that I know." And I feel like this part is mirroring a really interesting part of adolescence, like where something I've heard a lot is that people kind of think that like their parents know everything, and like their parents are invulnerable and infallible, and they have like a complete knowledge of the world and like an ability to protect them. And something that some people struggle with as they mature is like coming to see their parents like as just some hoes. You know what I'm saying? Like just some people who are like also doing their best. And I feel like this is kind of like mirroring the like anguish and the angst of that part of like, which is a normal part of development for like many people. I don't know, I just always kind of saw my parents as like people. I never really thought that like they were gonna like protect me from like anything or like do anything like extraordinary for me. I was just like, yeah, like they don't really know what, like I'm trying to figure out what's going on. They don't really know what's happening either. But like, I think this is kind of like an interesting parallel, like into like some of like the growing pains of childhood, where like many people kind of butt up against like the like kind of like edges of the knowledge of like the people in their family, and starting to come to terms with like fallibility and mortality and the limitations of their parents like just being people. So yeah, that's kind of what made me think about that. But anyway, so Louis actually takes her back to the house where he found her, and like explains that he found her clinging to her mother who'd die of plague. And like Claudia starts like losing her shit because she's like, "You fed on me? I was your victim?" "Yes," I said to her, "I did it." And I'm also, throughout this, it seems like Claudia's trying to figure out like which one of you made me so I can like blame you for my existence. But both Louis and Lestat had a part in creating her in the same way that like a man and a woman would take part in creating a baby. Once Claudia learns that like Louis killed her and fed on her, she tries to run away and he runs after her. Louis says, "It was unthinkable that I not catch her, that I not overtake her at once and tell her that I loved her, must have her, must keep her. And every second that I ran headlong down the dark street after her, it's like her slipping away from me drop by drop. My heart was pounding, unfed, pounding and rebelling against against the strain. So it's very interesting that, like, Louis seems to have this, like, real weird possessiveness, like, of Claudia. So it's like, yeah, like, I killed you, but, like, you're mine now. Like, you have to stay a little girl. You're not allowed to feel any way about it. You have to stay the way, which, like, pleases me. Yeah, and of course, like, Claudia's freaking out about this shit, right? She's like, you killed me. You took my life. Then we get into, like, one of the most, this is the most, like, exquisitely gothic passage, perhaps, in, like, all time. But also, like, there's just the way children are discussed in this universe is deeply fucking weird to me. Like, I don't, that's something I don't really get. Like, maybe I don't really like children, like, in general. Like, if I hear them coming, I'm kind of like, oh god. Like, oh, this is gonna be annoying. Like, so just, like, for one, I'm like, there is, like, it's a very, like, romanticized, like, sensual way of describing children, and I'm like, this just feels bad, and it, like, so one, I don't agree in general. Two, I don't really think you should talk about children in this way. But I do know that in older books, this was, like, very common, and, Anne Rice is kind of drawing, like, she has, like, a super male perspective, which is, like, something I want to talk about later. Like, it does not feel like these books were written, like, by women at all. Like, this very much has that, like, old world complete dismissal of women, like, pouring out of it, which is really interesting for, like, a book written in the 70s. Yeah, so, Louis, so she's like, you took my life. And Louis is like, rather I tried to take it, to drink it away, but you had a heart like no other heart I've ever felt. A heart that beat and beat until I had to let you go, to cast you away from me lest you quicken my pulse till I would die. Like, Yeah, and then, so he almost kills her. Then, Lestat brings her back to the house, right? Remember? And is like, finish it off. And, Louis says, I felt that passion for you again. I felt it for you again, a vile, insupportable hunger for your hammering heart, this cheek, this skin. You were pink and fragrant as mortal children are, sweet with the bite of salt and dust. I held you again, I took you again. When I thought your heart would kill me and I didn't care, he parted us, dashing his own wrist, gave it to you to drink. And drink you did, and drink and drink and drink until you nearly drained him and he was reeling. But you were a vampire then, and that very night you drank a human's blood, and have every night thereafter. Yeah, and so this section ends, and Claudia says, and here it is, she said under her breath, and I hate you both. You're real queen, I hate Louis and Lestat too, like, 0-10. Yeah, that's that section. So thanks so much for joining me on this fascinating journey into vampirism and incest. Remember, I'm your boy Isadora. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Got the whole playlist below if you want to catch up. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.